Friends, you're in for a very special treat today. His name is Dr. Joe Vitale. And if you haven't heard his name, you haven't been living in this decade or the last 2 decades. Dr. Vitale has gained prominence from his blockbuster film, The Secret, and is the author of multiple best selling books. The Attractor Factor, Life's Missing Instruction Manual, and At Zero, his newest release into this arena. And we'll talk more about that as we move on. But it's very important to know that Dr. Vitale is renowned for introducing the universal laws and practical systems that empower people. And this is what we're talking about: personal power, wealth, and success, effectively realizing miracles in people's lives. Welcome, Dr. Vitale.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this long-awaited moment.
Dr. Vitale, this is going to sound like a strange thing, but you've been in this since well before The Secret, the 1980s and so on. How did you get on this pathway to helping so many people? I'm sure many people ask that question. I always like to see where genius started off.
Well, I don't think I'm a genius, and I didn't start as a genius. I started because I needed help. So the first person I helped was me. People often say, how did you end up in self-help? How come you're writing self-help books? It's because I needed help. In the 1960s, when I'm a kid and I'm unhappy and I'm looking for some sort of solution, some sort of life preserver, I always turned to books and I always went to the library. And as I explored, I started finding pop psychology, then mysticism, then metaphysics, then philosophy. And yes, I'm a kid, I'm 12, 13, 14, 15, but it absolutely fascinated me. And I learned about the law of attraction and visualization and the power of belief, my God, in the 1960s. It wasn't going to be mainstream for a very long time. But we bookaholics, we were finding these things out in the esoteric section of bookstores and libraries long, long ago.
That's a brilliant answer, Joe. And it's interesting where these roots begin, because then you weren't only reading the books, you were applying the principles, found they worked, and then you started to develop your own principles.
Well, developing my own came as a natural evolution. I didn't intend to do it that way. My intent was to find some sort of peace within me. It wasn't until decades after beginning that process that I started considering writing about it in some way, shape, or form that it might help other people. I was very focused on the self-serving survival aspect of all of this because I was really just trying to help me. Over time, as it worked out, and I started to reveal to people with little articles and writings and this, that, and the other that this is my pursuit, I found they were interested. And that was a wake up for me. It's like, oh, what I've been studying for decades, which more or less made me an expert in the field, though I didn't know it and I didn't plan on it, put me in a position of authority so that when I did start to write about it, people would pay attention. And again, as I say this, you can't imagine that this is millions of people. I'm unknown, I'm unpublished. My first book wasn't until 1984. And then I didn't have another book for 10 years after that. So I didn't have what people look at as an overnight success. I went through more of many nights of the dark soul and the dark quest and the dark searching before I ever got to some sort of light or some sort of place where I could share.
I would say, Joe, you are an overnight success, 50 years of the making. And now you're finally seeing the success that all that hard work came in.
Yeah, I
And
usually tell people, yes, I'm an overnight success as you if you define overnight as 30 years.
exactly.
And yeah, definitely I'm an overnight success.
So let's jump into some of those universal laws that
Hmm.
you know are there. Let's share a couple of them with our audience, just in case they haven't read some of your works.
Well, I'd be glad to. And I'm constantly learning, constantly writing. So I'm still discovering and articulating what these different laws are, some of which people have heard of, some of which they may never have heard of. But since you were talking about my upbringing and how I got started in all this, let me go back and talk about a law that I first learned from a book that's still in print, a very famous book called The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. It came out in the 1950s. It's still in print today. I read it probably in the 1960s and several times in the 1970s. So imagine I'm a teenager and I'm insecure, immature, backward, very shy. And I was defeated all the time by my father, who was an extrovert, ex-Marine, prize fighter, life of the party, very controlling. And as part of why I felt intimidated, part of why I felt abused was because of his overpowering nature. So I read this book called The Magic of Believing. And the magic of believing is all about a principle everybody's heard, but it's the principle of if you can believe it with congruency inside of you, you have this integrity where everything's aligned in you and you believe something can happen, chances are it's going to manifest in your life. And I read The Magic of Believing and I thought, this is incredible. I wonder if I can use it to beat my father at ping pong, which was this competitive thing we played all the time. And he always beat me, which added to my insecurity and sense of failure. And so I read The Magic of Believing and I started thinking, okay, let me visualize beating my father. And in my head, I saw us at the ping pong table and I saw him on the other side. And I saw myself hitting the balls and making them go in such directions he couldn't hit them back fast enough and he kept missing them. And I went through all of this, just like Claude Bristol talked about in his book, visualizing it, then believing it. When I got to the point where I thought, I got this, I looked up from the book and I said, hey, Dad, would you like to play some ping pong? And of course, he was always game to beat his son. So we go in the basement, we play ping pong, and I wiped the floor with him. I still remember decades ago. I'm in my 70s now, and he's long gone. He left at 93. I still remember as if it was yesterday because the look on his face, he was confused. He was shocked. He could not understand or fathom what took place. But all I did was a couple of the basic principles. One is the power of the mind. I was believing it. And part of it was visualization. I was seeing it. And when I felt in myself that I got it, this was real, I'm just going to manufacture what I already created in my head, I got up and participated in reality and beat my father. This is a big deal. This is a big moment in my life.
I have two comments to make about that, Joe. One is Napoleon Hill wrote a similar book called Think and Grow Rich,
Master.
where you literally have to prime your unconscious to make it do the things you need it to do. So you need to help yourself by going through that imaging phase. You need to help yourself by believing, and you need to do the step of making that unconscious turn into the most powerful thing there is. Do you think that's what you did?
Absolutely. I hadn't read Napoleon Hill yet. I don't think I read Napoleon Hill until the 70s. But of course, I know today that he was a genius. You're going to use the word genius, put it on Napoleon Hill. And he was prolific and he did all this research and he came up with all these principles. And Think and Grow Rich is probably the #1 book that has impacted people more than any other book in the whole self-help movement, particularly around attracting money, attracting wealth. That's why it's called Think and Grow Rich. And his line in there, which I think is the greatest quote of all time. And I'm jealous that I didn't get to write this quote. But he said, if the mind can conceive it and believe it, it can achieve it. And that sums it up. That is it. If you can conceive it, in my case, as a teenager wanting to beat my father, what I conceived is the possibility that I could beat him. Then if you can believe it, and then I went through that whole thing thanks to The Magic of Believing and Claude Bristol's brilliant book to get to the point where I felt like I believe this. And then it's possible to actually achieve it. And this is where you have to get up and take action. In my case, hey, Dad, let's go to the basement. Let's pick up the ping pong balls. Let's start playing. So yes, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, that famous quote, if you can conceive it and believe it, you can achieve it.
Exactly. And the second comment I want to make about that, there once was a military officer who for 10 years did not play golf. He ran the game through his mind day in and day out.
Yeah.
Now, he was a prisoner of war in a Vietnamese camp. When he was released, he went and played golf and he took 10 strokes off his usual game. There you are with that imagery and how important it is.
You can accomplish, by God, miracles when you start doing the inner work before you try to do it in the outer world. This has been shown so many times. It's ridiculous. The amount of evidence is overwhelming that you can prime the reality that you would like to create by doing the internal work, primarily with the visualization and belief work. You can even do the rehearsal inside of your mind. There's been, I was in bodybuilding and fitness and all this other stuff for the longest time. There's even all of those people that are doing the sculpting of their bodies. They're doing it in their mind first. When they do it in their mind first and they get to the point where they can believe it can happen, then whatever they do in the real world is accelerated. They get better results and they get faster results because they chiseled the model they want in their mind first. And if somebody's sitting there going, well, I don't really want more money, which seems ridiculous, or I don't want to be a bodybuilder, which is fine, but you probably have some sort of desire. There's some sort of want that you have in your life, and it could be for health, it could be for romance, it could be for any number of things, even spiritual awakening. You can prime the pump, so to speak, by doing the inner work and programming the subconscious slash unconscious to help make this process easier and, in fact, just about guaranteed to work.
That's beautiful, Joe. Now we're going to pause for a commercial message, but friends, come right back because Dr. Joe Vitale is going to share some other beautiful secrets with us. Friends, I have a world famous person, Dr. Joe Vitale, known from his work on The Secret, The Attractor Factor, Life's Missing Instruction Manual, and At Zero. Now, Joe, you talk about something called Ho'oponopono. I hope I got that right. Tell us a little bit about that.
You did it well. I was waiting for you to fracture it in some way, shape, or form. But that's Ho'oponopono, which is a Hawaiian healing technique that was fairly secret for the longest time. But I wrote the first book that brought it to the masses, and boy, has it shaken the earth. The book was called Zero Limits, and Zero Limits has introduced the planet to this very simple way of cleaning up perceptions to create a reality faster that they prefer. And the story behind it, if you can give me a minute to kind of lay the groundwork here, is I had heard around 2003 about a therapist who helped heal an entire ward of mentally ill criminals at a state hospital in Hawaii. And those criminals were so dangerous, they were shackled or sedated every day. And the hospital they were in was so uncomfortable and scary, doctors, social workers, nurses quit on a regular basis. The hospital was state run. They needed to have a therapist license and everything to be there to get their funding. And so they took this one guy who said, well, I'll do it, but I'm going to do my own brand of therapy. And his brand of therapy had nothing to do with working one-on-one with those patients slash inmates. His brand of therapy was this Hawaiian healing technique called Ho'oponopono. And what he did was work on himself. He was using Ho'oponopono on himself. And as he used it on himself, lo and behold, and this is what I say all the time, you change the inner and the outer reflects it. Lo and behold, those patients got better. Slowly, not overnight, but slowly they got better to the point where they didn't need to be shackled. They didn't need to be sedated. And they were very soon, within months, starting to be released as normal and functioning and average, and you can go back into society kind of people. I first heard this story and thought, this is incredible. If this is at all true, then somebody needs to tell the world. Because if this strange thing called Ho'oponopono can help heal mentally ill criminals, what can it do for you and I? What can it do for you and I with our little itsy bitsy problems and challenges, and the people we care about. I'm not dismissing or belittling any of it, but compared to being a violent inmate in a mental hospital for the criminally insane, most of our problems don't come anywhere near a comparison. So I went and I found Dr. Hulen. That was the name of the therapist. He taught me the method, which was Ho'oponopono, and we ended up writing the first book, Zero Limit. Then we did a series of events together. Then I've written like 4 books since. I wrote At Zero, The Fifth Phrase, and I have a new book coming out in July of 2024 called Zero Limits Living. This is an amazing process, amazing technique, and I could tell you stories that go on forever about people using this for probably anything you could name and getting a breakthrough. It's an amazing technique.
You know, Joe, we won't have time on the show to go through all those stories, but perhaps you can think in your mind one that really stands out, because I'd like our listeners to have something to take home at the end of the day and see how this works. So share with us a story, Joe. All of us need stories.
That's exactly right. Well, I got stories and I am a storyteller. I've written 90 books, so I know a little bit about crafting a story to get across the message. So let's look at Ho'oponopono. In my own life, it's important to understand that the key message of Ho'oponopono is that there isn't a problem on the outside. It is your perception of what you're seeing on the outside that is the issue. And Ho'oponopono was working with your perceptions. When you change your perceptions, the outside reflects that change. So in my case, and this is probably a very dramatic story, but I think people can relate to it. It was several years ago, my mother was dying, and I was traveling and all over the world, and they called me in saying, we're calling all the family in. She is in intensive care in the emergency room. She doesn't look like she's going to make it. So I drop everything, get on a flight, get there, and I get to this little ward in this hospital, and there's 5 other patients in this intensive care. 3 of them die while I'm there. This is how intense this place is. This is the atmosphere of it. And my mother's in a bed. My family's there. My father, I got 2 brothers, sister, and the close relatives, we're all there, and everybody's in a state of confusion and shock. We don't know what to do. And I'm sitting there as this guy who's written all these books and has all this experience in self-help and believing and visualizing, feeling helpless. All I knew to do was what Ho'oponopono had taught me. So I sat beside the bed, her bed, and inside myself, I'm saying the key phrases of Ho'oponopono, which the basic 4 are, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I'm not saying them out loud. I'm not saying them to her. You say them inside yourself as a kind of a prayer to what I call the great divine. You can call it the great something, you can call it God, you can call it Gaia, you can call it nature, you can call it, there's 99,000 names for this force of the cosmos. So I am talking to the cosmos, to the divine, saying, I'm sorry. I don't know what beliefs might have been in me or her or in my ancestors to create this, but please forgive me. Please forgive us. Thank you for cleaning up my perceptions. Thank you for taking care of the belief systems, what's called data in Ho'oponopono. And I love you for my life, for my process, for my mother, for Ho'oponopono. And I say that over and over and over and over again until a nurse comes in and says, visiting hours are over, you have to leave and come back tomorrow. My mother's unmoved. It looks like she's gonna die. We come back the next day, and my mother's sitting on the side of the bed putting her socks on, and she wants to go home. And of course, she's released, and she lives for another 4 years. To me, this was a direct response to me practicing Ho'oponopono. And it's also important to understand I did not practice it on her. I practiced it on my perceptions of her. And this is the magic and the mystery of Ho'oponopono. It works when you work it on yourself.
That is beautiful, Joe. That is beautiful. Do we have any idea why this works as it does?
Well, we have lots of speculations. In my follow-up book after Zero Limits called At Zero, I looked at some of the philosophy and some of the science and some of the opinions about all of this. We're talking about a modality with Ho'oponopono that is so esoteric and otherworldly that some speculate it came from another planet. In Ho'oponopono, you consider that there is nothing on the outside. Nothing. It's all an illusion. It is all a projection. And if that is taken as truth, there's nothing on the outside, that means all of the outside can be changed by the movie director, who is you. And so in this deeper esoteric mystery philosophy behind Ho'oponopono, they're really saying there's only one person to change. It's you. And by projection and extension, by changing everything in you, the outer again reflects it. So I don't know, I wouldn't know how to prove it in any sort of scientific way unless some quantum theorist, Einstein level mystic showed up. And even then, how would they explain it to you and me so we would understand it? I just know it works.
Exactly. I would like to bring those 4 points. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me and thank you. Those are some simple points.
Yeah.
You know, many people have a problem of forgiving others and themselves. That's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
So,
You know, you can't carry around this problem of forgiveness with you. I remember Nelson Mandela was talking to Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton asked him, "Aren't you angry for being put in prison for 20 years?" And Nelson Mandela's response said, "Of course I am, but I must forgive them. Otherwise, I will never be free." That's profound.
it is profound. And if you want to talk about another one of the universal principles for having a happier life, it is around the area of forgiveness. I believe it was Wayne Dyer many decades ago who said, if there's any block anywhere in your life, it has to do with forgiveness. And typically, when people think of forgiveness, they talk about, well, I need to forgive so and so, or my mother, my father, my neighbor, my brother, somebody who attacked me or said something. That's not the forgiveness we're talking about. It's the forgiveness of yourself for judging all those people. Oh, no, you're not saying, please forgive me or I'm sorry, as a way to make good what people did or what people said. Again, this goes back to perception. It's your perception about what people did and what people said that makes you angry or makes you resentful or makes you lock down this energy. And you kind of time lock the energy as a moment that you still carry around. When you actually forgive yourself for making those judgments, all of that energy is freed up. And what is that freed up to do? It's freed up to allow you to manifest what you would prefer to have in your life. So I'm sorry and please forgive me are 2 key statements of the 4 basic ones in Ho'oponopono. And I've done this enough to know that a lot of people object to those 2 things. They say, I'm not going to say I'm sorry. I didn't do anything wrong. And I go, you're completely misunderstanding this because it's not about doing anything wrong at all. It's not about that. In fact, even the judgment that you did something wrong is what you would forgive yourself for. Because as you are whole and complete and divine and loved. Dr. Hulin, the therapist that taught me all this, he went for a walk one day and he came back and he was crying. And he said, all the divine wants us to know, all the divine is trying to communicate is you are loved. You are loved. When we don't feel loved, it's because we're the ones judging ourselves. So when it comes to forgiveness, it's really not a matter of forgiving other people. It's a matter of forgiving yourself. Yourself for whatever you think you did wrong, and yourself for judging other people. All the forgiveness stems from you. Forgive yourself and you have an awakening. It's one of the universal laws that is maybe the most powerful because most people don't look at it. They say that I need to forgive so-and-so, but they don't think about forgiving themselves for what they said about so-and-so.
Friends, we're going to pause for another commercial message, but come right back because Joe Vitale, one of the most prominent people in the self-help area, is going to come back and teach us some more. Friends, we have Dr. Joe Vitale today, one of the biggest leaders in the self-help field. He talks about this. He was featured on The Secret, but he has over 90 books, and they all help you out a lot. And the newest one is At Zero. Joe, this show is called the How to Live a Fantastic Life show. From your heart, how do you live a fantastic life?
It's a great question, and I love the title of your show, and I love what you're doing to help people have an amazing life. For me, it's a matter of following your unique mission. And when I say that, I'm really talking about following your passion, following your calling, following the mystery that's leading you by the nose. And you have the free will. You have the ability to say no. You don't have to follow it. But I find you have that amazing life when you do say yes and you do follow it, even when you don't know where it's going. My whole desire to be an author, when I was a little kid, I kind of oversimplified the story by saying I wanted to write books. Before I got to that point of saying I wanted to write books and be an author and make a difference, I experimented. I was thinking to myself, I love baseball. I want to be Babe Ruth. I loved boxing because my father had been a boxer, and I thought, I want to be Jack Dempsey. I want to be the heavyweight champion of the world. I'd watched enough TV to go, well, wait a minute, I want to be an actor. I can do that. You get to play all kind of different roles. And I had seen enough about Clarence Darrow and some of the detectives, probably because of movies or lawyers. And I thought I can be an attorney. And so I was going through the self-exploration of trying to find which one rang the bell for me. And what rang the bell for me was being an author. So that's what I said, well, this seems like it's my life mission. I'm destined to do this. Something wants me to do that. You can say it's God, the universe. I don't know, but something is telling me this is your mission. So when you follow your mission, you start to have an amazing life. And I'm quick to point out your mission doesn't have to be an author or be in movies or be on stages around the world or do anything that I do. That may be repulsive to you. You may think that is hell. That's not what you want to do. It's not your joy. Your joy may be making cupcakes for the Sunday church service. It may be running the PTA meeting for the local school. It may be something like opening a restaurant and you have the best carrot cake muffins in the world and everybody in the neighborhood comes over there. Your mission is unique to you. And when you start to follow that, that's when the life path is amazing. You still have uncertainty, you still have challenges, but you ride with the passion and the joy and that electricity that comes from doing what you love. So for me, amazing life equals your life mission.
Bill, how can people get in touch with you and find out more about what you have to offer?
You're kind to give me that opportunity. Well, first, I'm not hiding. I'm all over the internet. I post on social media, original content almost every day. So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as Dr. Joe Vitale, DrJoe Vitale. I have a coaching program called Miracles Coaching. It's at miraclescoaching.com. I have my own podcast at ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. I have a new book coming out, Zero Limits Living. I have my own movie in production right now. It too is called Zero Limits. You can sense a brand here. And my main website is probably Mr. Fire, MRFIRE.com, MrFire.com.
Well, we have probably about 1 minute left, Joe. How did you get the name Mr. Fire?
That's cool. There was a woman I knew 25 years ago, and she started calling me Mr. Fire on her own. We'd go out to eat, and she'd say, hey, Mr. Fire. And I finally said, why are you calling me Mr. Fire? And she said, because you light a fire under everybody you talk. And I was doing the same thing with her. I was lighting a fire under her butt to write a book that she was thinking about. And she noticed I was doing it with everybody. I would just find out what they were interested in and then encourage them, hopefully inspire them. And she started calling me Mr. Fire, and the nickname stuck. And when the internet kind of opened up to the public and I put my website up, none of us knew what we were doing back then. And I said, well, I'll just call it MrFire.com. So it's been with me ever since.
Joe, that's a great story, just like all your other stories are great. And friends, if you want to find out more about this fascinating person and what he has to teach, pick up a couple of his books, go to his website, watch some of his movies. I know you will learn a lot. Joe has taught me a lot throughout my career. Bye for now, friends. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful. Godspeed to everybody.